Okay, Year 7, we're about to start our new unit on time. There's only 3 exercises in this, so it shouldn't take us very long, and most of the work is quite manageable until we get to time differences, and then it gets quite hard. The last exercise, exercise 7C. So what I want you to do to begin with is we need to make some notes, and we need to read this. So you should pause it and read it, and then I'm going to go through it. So pause the video now. Okay, now that you've read it, there are some things you need to understand. So the Babylonians gave us the base 60. So they're the ones who divided time up into a base 60. The 24-hour day comes from the Egyptians, and they split the day into 2 sections, 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night. Now here's the important bit. We use AM and PM. And AM stands for ante meridiem, which is Latin, and it means for before noon. And PM stands for post meridiem, which is Latin for afternoon. And they represent the hours before noon, midday, and afternoon in the afternoon. There's another thing too. The Earth takes about 365 days and a bit, a quarter, to travel or orbit the sun, which is why a year is 365 and a quarter days. Now, the quarter is hard to work out, so that means every 4 years we have a leap year. And that means 1 month gets an extra day, and that month happens to be February. We got this calendar, and you'll notice there used to be a calendar that only had 10 months. So things like October should really be 8, and Decat should be 10. And also No means non or 9, and Set is a prefix that represents 7. But the Romans gave us 2 extra months, and they put them in. And July for Julius Caesar, and August for Augustus Caesar. So that put all these ones over here out by 2. So even though we've got words that might say October should be the 8th month, it isn't, because we've got July and August. Anyway, that was put in, and now we have this calendar, which is called the Gregorian calendar. Now, you need to be able to know how many days are in each month. There's a quick little rhyme that your mum or dad or grandma, someone might have shown you, your teacher might have shown you, and it goes something like this. 30 days have September, April, June, and November. All the rest have 31, excepting February, which has 28 days clear and 29 in each leap year. 30 days have September, April, June, and November. All the rest have 31, excepting February, which has 28 days clear and 29 in each leap year. So that's a good way to remember that. Now, let's have a look at our units of time, and you need to make some notes here. So I'd pause the video and just quickly write those notes there. So pause it now, quickly write them. Okay, so now you're back with us. Most of you will have known that there are 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes an hour, 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, and 12 months in a year. In your notes, I also want you to write 1 month equals 4 weeks. And then put a big fat cross through it. Because a lot of people think that is true, but it's not. Some months, well, all the months have 4 weeks, but some have a little bit more. Remember, 4 weeks is 28 days. And the only one that has exactly 28 days is February. And that only has it 3 out of every 4 years. So please do not equate 1 month with 4 weeks. It'll run you into trouble. This bit here is very useful. So useful that when we do some of these questions, I'm going to rewrite it down there so it's right above wherever I'm going to be doing my work. And I'd suggest very strongly you do that as well. Okay, so let's go and do some questions. Now, you have to do questions 1 verbally, 1 and 2 verbally with mum and dad. So pause the video now, go and do questions 1 and 2 with mum and dad, or a brother and sister, or your dog, even though your dog won't understand. Maybe your dog will, and then come back. So just go and do them verbally and see how you go. So now you're back, we're going to start doing some conversions mathematically. And remember I said we want that little spiel that they wrote up there down here. So I'm going to write it here. So days to hours to minutes to seconds. Now, when I'm going down, days to hours, I times by 24. Hours to minutes, I times by 60. Minutes to seconds, I times by 60. And when I'm going back the other way, I do the opposite, or the undoing. I divide by 60. I divide by 60. And I divide by 60. You could put weeks in there as well, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm just going to do some of these. I want you to do them on your own. So how many seconds in 2 minutes? So I'm going from minutes to seconds. So this is 4a. I've got 2 minutes, and that equals 2. What have I got to do? Times by 60. Times by 60, 120 seconds. So that's why this little table is very, very useful. Let's go hours to minutes. So I'll try C. You can do the other one. You can do B on your own. I'm going, how many hours in 120 minutes? So I've got 120 minutes. I've got to go to hours. So that's this one here. What have I got to do? I've got to divide by 60. So 120 divided by 60, it gives me 2 hours. Okay, so now you can see how you've got to do it. I'm going to do E and G. You do the other side. So E, how many hours in 3 days? How many hours in 3 days? So I've got 3 days, and I've got to get hours. So I'm going days to hours, so that's this one. So times by 24. 3 times 24. I'm going to need my calculator for that one. 3 times 24, 72. So 72 hours in 3 days. The last one there is how many weeks. And this is one I said we didn't have, but I'm going to add it. So this is how many weeks. So weeks, I'm going to put it here. There are 7 days in a week. So if I'm going from weeks to days, I'll times by 7. And if I'm going from days to weeks, I'll divide by 7. So what have I got in G? I've got 35 days. 35 days. I want to find out how many weeks. Going days to weeks. So this one here, I've got to divide by 7. So 35 divided by 7, that'll give me 5 weeks. All right, you can do the other side by yourself. Make sure you check your answers. Now, the next one we have to do is question 5. So let's have a look at question 5. Convert these times into the units. So we're doing the same thing in 5. Again, I'm going to do the first column. So here's 5A. And I'm lucky I've got my little diagram up here. I've got 3 hours and I'm going to minutes. So 3 hours to minutes, I've got to times by 60. So 3 times 60. Again, I'd use my calculator. 3 times 60, 180. 180 minutes. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. 90 minutes to hours. So this is D. I've got 90 minutes. And I've got to go to hours. Well, that's one of these blue ones, minutes to hours. So 90 divided by 60. And I do that on my calculator. 90 divided by 60. 1.5. Oh, 1.5 hours. Or, remember on your calculator, you can press this SD button and it changes it to a fraction. But that's an improper fraction. If you want to change it to a mixed numeral, you press Shift and the SD button. Oh, 1.5 hours. Some of you would have already known that. 1.5 hours. Okay. What are we up to? 1 week into hours. 1 week into hours. So this is G. So I've got 1 week. So I'm going to go 1. I have to convert that into days. So 1 times 7. So it'll give me 7 days. But I've got to convert it into hours. So I've got to go another jump. So I'm going to have to times by 24 to get it into hours. So I go to my calculator. 1 times 7 times 24. 168 hours in a week. Okay. Let's have a go at M. 3.5 hours. What letter is it again? I didn't say that properly. M. Oh no, I forgot J. 20,160 minutes. So J. 20,160 minutes. Okay. Well, I've got to go back to, what do they want me to get this in? Weeks. So I've got minutes and I've got to go from there to there to there. By the way, that should be a 60. Sorry, that should be a 24. Got to go from there to there to there to there. So I've got to divide by 60, divide by 24, and divide by 7. Whoa! So 2160 divide by 60, divide by 24, and divide by 7. And that's to get it into hours, that's to get it into days, and that's to get it into weeks. So I do all this in one go. 20160. Too many zeros there. And too many twos. 20160 divided by 60 divided by 24 divided by 7. 2 weeks. Now, the last one that I'm going to do, 270 minutes into hours. What letter was that? P. Oh, I forgot M. 3.5 hours into minutes. Sorry about that. M. 3.5 hours. Well, to go from hours to minutes, I just times by 60. And again, just calculator, 210 minutes. And the last one I'm going to do is P. And I'm converting 270 minutes into hours. 270 minutes into hours. Well, that's 270 divided by 60. 4.5. Or 4.5 hours. So you should be able to do the other two columns, which is what I think you're meant to do anyway. Last two columns. Let's have a look at these. So that was question 5. Question 6 deals with 24-hour time and AM and PM. Now, 12-hour time, right? So if you use a 12-hour clock, once you hit 12 noon, you go back to 1. But the 1 is now PM. Post meridian, which means post midday or noon. And ante-meridian means before midday or noon. So let's have a look. 6A. We've got 1:30. Now, 1:30 PM. Well, if I had a clock, that means I've gone to 12 noon, then I've got another hour and a half. So over here, I'm just going to get rid of these now that I've done them. I'm going to draw a little clock so I can show you how this works. And it might help you. So come on. So there's my clock. And I'm just going to go around and go, okay, that's 12, that's 3, that's 6, that's 9, and I've got 1, 2, all the way around. I'm not doing it completely accurately. So there's our clock. And when we go once around, right, so 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 a.m., 12 noon. After 12 noon, we go 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m. But if we're going around the second time with a 24-hour clock, we don't say, oh, we go 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and then they go back to 1. So that's how you can do your conversions. So 1:30 p.m. means you've gone round once and you've got another and a half hours. So that will be 13:30. Just think about that, and we call that hours. That's in a 24-hour clock. Okay, I'm going to do the next one. 11:59 p.m. So here we go, D. 11:59 p.m. Okay, so where have I gone? So if I go here in the blue, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., all the way around, 11 a.m., 12, 9, noon, 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 11 p.m., 11 p.m. Well, that's 23 hours, 11 p.m. And I've got 11 p.m. and 59. So I've got 23 hours, 59 minutes. 2359. Okay. 1429 hours. Okay. This is going back the other way. G. 1429 hours. Now, some people just say, well, that's gone into the PM and just subtract 12. And that's a pretty smart way to do it. So you subtract 12 and you get 229 and it's PM. Or you can look over here and go, okay, well, 14 is here. So 14 is 2 and 29 minutes. So that's 2:29 PM. And this is pretty hard, this. You've got to be quite good with both an analog and a digital clock. I'm going to try another one. I'm going to try H. You see if you can do that on your own. H. And I've got 1938. 1938. Well, if I just subtract the 12 from the 19, that'll give me 7, and the 38 just sits there. 7:38, and that should be PM. If I look over at this little clock I've drawn, I'm looking for 19, and as you can see, there's 19. So it's 7, it's a 7 PM plus another 38. So 7:38, and you've got to put the PM. Okay. You have a go at those other ones. They're difficult. All right. Question 7. How are you meant to do these? So you've got a digital clock display, and you've got to know, and I'm going to draw another clock here. You need to know what is a half, a quarter, a third even of a clock. So there's, need that a bit bigger. Oh, I can't get it now. I'll undo that. So I'll try it again, because I want a nice round, oh, that'll do. And I'll go 12, 6, 3, 9, because that cuts my circle into quarters. And each hand here, so the 1, the 2, and the 3, has 5 minutes. So if I'm using the shorthand, from there to there is 15 minutes. So a quarter of an hour is 15 minutes. A half of an hour, well, that's another 15. A half an hour is 30 minutes. 3/4 of an hour, I'll see you in 3/4 of an hour. That's 45 minutes. Now you could do the same. You could do the same with thirds. So that's why the Babylonians liked to use a base 60. It had nice splits. So here we go. I break this up into thirds. Because I've got 1 to 12, 3, 6, 9, sorry, that's 12. 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, 11. Okay, so if I break it up into thirds, well, there's 1/3 and there's the other. Now, that is from there to there, 4 5s, that's 20 minutes. From there to there, 2/3, that's 40 minutes. And then you've got your last 5, 10, 15, 20. Sorry, if I've drawn that, that line should be there. Okay? So they each can try. So let's have a go at some of these questions now. That's 7b. I'm going too far. So 1 hour, so the first one, 7a, 1 hour and 30 minutes. Well, that's 1.5 hours. Or 1.5, if you wanted to write it as a decimal. You have a go at the next one, which is, let me see, 4:45. Well, 4:45, you can pause the video and have a go. 4:45 equals 4 hours and 3/4 of an hour, which is 4.75. How do I know that? Not because I know, but if I press if I type it into my calculator, 4.4, do it as a fraction, 4 and 3 on 4, and 4.75. Okay, let's have a look at, well, the next one. You can do those two, see how you go. Now, I'm going to show you a trick with doing 8, and then I'm going to, and it'll help after you've first have a go without a calculator, then we're going to do them with a calculator. So question 8, and I'm going to create some space here because I want to do it where I can see the questions. So if I have a look at question 8, I've got to write these in hours and minutes. Okay, so 8A, 2.5 hours. Well, that's 2 hours, half an hour, 30 minutes, half of 60. Okay, B, 4.25 hours. Now what did we say a quarter was? 15 minutes. So 4 hours and 15 minutes. You have a go at C. And if you remember, over here, I did a third. You can see what a third is. Okay, so let's go back to 8. 1.33 hours. 1.33. Well, that is 1 hour and 20 minutes. Well, okay. Let's do a decimal. 6.5. D. 6.5. Well, I know 0.5 is a half. That's 6.5. So 6 hours and 30 minutes. All right, so now I'm going to show you the trick. And this is how we're going to do question 10. So we're going to jump very quickly from this question to question 10. and then I'm going to come back to question 9. So your calculator has a button on it, and it's the button, 2 buttons above the 8. It's got a whole lot of what look to be like commas, and some people call it the bubble button. So watch what happens here as I go 6.5, which is the question we just did. I press equals, and I press the bubble button. 6 hours, 30 minutes. It's actually for turning degrees into degrees, minutes, and seconds. But because degrees, minutes, and seconds are a base 60, we can use it. Have a think back to that 1 1/3. Well, let's try that. Shift 1 and 1 on 3. You press equals, and you press the bubble button. 1 hour, 20 minutes. So now let's have a look at E. Now E was 3.75. Now I'm lucky because I know that that's 3 3/4. 0.75 is 3/4. So that's 3 hours and 45 minutes. But you can go 3.75, press equals, press the degrees, minutes, seconds, or bubble button, as some people like to call it, and you get 3 hours 45, which is exactly that one there. That's why they want you to do question 10 doing those. So I'm going to do one more for you. So I'm going to do 10A, and then I want you to finish off question 8 and 10 really easily. So what do we got? 7.12. I press equals. I press the degrees. 7 hours, 7 minutes, 12 seconds. So 7.12 hours equals 7 hours, 7 minutes, and 12 seconds. You have a go at the other ones. All right. The last question I want to do is question 9. Now, they're asking me to round these to the nearest hour. So I'm going to do A and C, and you try B and D. So 9. I've got 1 hour and 32 p.m. So if I look at my clock, and I'm just worried about the minute hand because I'm worried about where is it closer to 2 p.m. or is it closer to 1 p.m. So I go to my clock, and this is going to be what the hands of the clock were looking like if I was doing it. But remember, I'm only concerned about the minute hand. So 1, so the little hand is somewhere pointing there, and 32, so that's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. It's here. Now, this is the halfway mark at the 30-minute mark. Once it goes past there, it's past halfway. Now, when we round in decimals, the halfway point is 5. So if I'm looking here, I draw a red line there. I look at the number behind. If it's 3 or more, now we used to say 5 in decimal, but when we're talking about half of 60 is 30. So the number behind, if it's 30, or the 2 numbers behind, or if the single number is 3 or more, we round up. So that is going to be closer to 2 p.m. Now, I'm just checking the answers. We can do exactly the same thing in 24-hour time. Right, so you have a go at B, and I'm going to have a go at C. So that was 9A, C. I've got 12, 19 hours. So again, I go to the edge of the hours, I look at the number behind. Is it 3 or 30 or more? It's not. So I'm just leaving that as 12. But I have to indicate 24-hour times, I have to have two numbers there. So it's closer to 1200 hours. And that's how we say 24-hour times. You've probably seen it on movies. 1600 hours, 1300 hours, 0600 hours. You need to do those. Righto. You have a go at the other two, this one and this one. And then you can do these ones because they're in 24-hour time. There's that one we were just talking about, 11, 0630. Oh, that's 6:30 a.m. in the morning. All right, so that's our first lesson on time. Hopefully you've been able to do some of those questions. Some of them are difficult. Check with mum and dad. Use your calculator and make sure you email your teacher if you're having problems.